Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omer Hargrove, and today we're going to be digging into something that separates people who stay stagnant from those who step into their full potential, and that is us talking about a commitment to developing your craft. Whether you're a leader, a creative, an entrepreneur, a communicator, or even just a builder, you have a craft, and your craft is that thing that you've been entrusted with, your skill, your lane, your influence. And the truth is, you don't sharpen your skill by staying comfortable. You grow it by stretching yourself in intentional and sometimes surprising ways. And this episode is all about learning how to practice, refine, and grow even when the opportunities aren't perfect or the environment is unfamiliar. This episode is for you, especially if you have felt like maybe you haven't leveled up in a while, or you feel like stagnant or stale, and there's something inside of you that maybe you haven't even articulated yet that needs to grow, and you're trying to navigate how to do that. This episode is for you. So let's start off by first talking about why sharpening your craft matters. Everyone starts with some kind of gift or potential. And what separates the greatly impactful people from the ones that seem, let's just say, ordinary, isn't necessarily always talent. It's how seriously they take the process of growth. It's not about being better than someone else. It's about becoming the best version of who you can be. And you can't expect that kind of fruit without a type of cultivation. You can't expect mastery without all kinds of different ways of repetition. And stewardship isn't just about what you have, it's about what you develop. And as we unpack this today, I want us to really try to take this with a broad understanding, because this could apply to your faith, it could apply to your career, to your education, it could apply to your marriage, your friendships, parenting skills. This is really a broad. This could be applied in a broad way, even though we're talking about something very specific. So let's unpack what is your craft. What is it that you want to grow? And that requires you to need to define it. See, your craft might be teaching, maybe leading others, maybe it's writing or creating, maybe it's coaching or building systems, mentoring, designing, organizing, storytelling, encouraging, serving people. Maybe it's parenting, maybe it's your marriage, etc. What I want to encourage you to do is really clearly define what it is that you're wanting to work on. Try to define it very clearly, because in order to sharpen our craft, we can't take this necessarily broad approach like, oh, it could be anything. You want to get a core skill that you are working on, and that central thing that helps you to bring value, solve problems, or serve others, and commit to growing it. Even if like you were to say, I'm really good at listening, I feel like I'm great at listening, then let that be it, and that is going to be the single skill that you develop and grow. But I want us to really narrow it down. And once we do that, we can start learning how to stretch that skill. For me, my main craft is communicating, speaking, and it's this idea of speaking with purpose, sharing a message, whether it's on a platform, a platform, in a room, through a screen. And speaking is just, I'm a professional speaker, right? I'll never shut up. And for a long time, I spoke mostly in church settings. That's where I start this craft, from sharing messages as a youth pastor. And that was my norm, is even just specific to that audience of high school and middle school kids. But at some point, I realized that I was not growing more in my speaking skills. And so I was kind of like exasperating all my different ways of how I can be a better speaker. But it's kind of like checking off the boxes. Like, okay, I've worked on my body language. I've worked on, my sentence interrupters and things like that. But I still felt like I was plateauing. And that is where I had to learn how I was polished in one environment, but it wasn't necessarily versatile. I could speak to young people, to kids, high school and middle school, but could I speak to adults? Could I speak to children? And so I started branching out and switching up the ages of my audiences. And while in that time, I was just kind of like trying to get any opportunity to speak. And sure enough, it was a lot different to talk to elementary kids and, like very young kids compared to high school and middle school. And I had to develop and learn how to speak in another way. And then, of course, switching to adults. And I have to really change how I speak in another way. And you cannot speak to adults the same way that you speak to kids. It's not received the same way. So again, just switching these things up, I was getting this versatility to my craft. But then I started branching out more. So see, before I would mainly speak in churches, but then I started going to recovery centers. And now I'm talking to people who are unchurched. And I get to practice my craft without any safety net of them knowing churchianities or Christianese. And is able to develop my craft with a new audience in a new way. And what I was talking about, being able to talk about more than just one thing. And see, you see this level of practice with intention, creating this versatility. And I was not that great at it at first. And until I got better and better, where I have this confidence, now I feel like I'm plateauing again. And then again, continually switching up audiences, trying to find new ways to speak, and even going into like recorded talks, like this podcast right now being recorded talk. This is one way that I was able to use to practice speaking in a new way. And even when it came to like our church messages, there's a period where I was strictly just recording an online service separately to get more practice, see if it could be different than an in-person recording. Y'all get what I'm saying? Is this constant developing of how I can speak in different ways I can speak. Essentially, I'm doing the same thing, but I can tell you this, that is big, huge difference speaking in front of a live audience compared to doing a recording by yourself. Dramatically different. And as I continued to force myself to practice in these different ways, I was continually getting better. And now I'm even in this new experimenting phase where some of you guys follow me. You know that I've just started streaming on Twitch video game playthroughs. And those of y'all who know me, y'all know that I like to game. But streaming on Twitch is kind of like a new foreign thing for me. I've never been, like video games has been like a safe place, right? This is this place where I can just decompress and chill out. But the thing that interests me about it, maybe it's a new level of way to have fun with something that's like a hobby. But what I'm really interested in doing is learning how to talk in a new way. One, while playing a game, narrating something, essentially having this space to practice talking without having a topic or an outline, just in real-time communication, practicing flow, presence, connection without there being any direction to it. And essentially, I want to learn how to get good at talking about nothing. Y'all dig what I'm saying? And it's this, it's not just that it's about entertainment, it's about me sharpening my skills in a new setting. And the same principle applies no matter what your craft is. If you're a writer, write in different tones. If you're a leader, lead in unfamiliar dynamics. If you're a coach, work with someone outside your usual client base. Try to stretch this skill rather than just repeat it. And I want to break down 5 ways for you to hone your craft creatively. Number 1 is to practice in this new environment. So shift the setting, and if you're used to, just like for me, if you're used to being live, try recorded. If you're used to silence, try noise. Trying to change your backdrop, trying to change what your challenge is. Even if it is just you, like you being a plumber, try experimenting. If you've only done residential, see if there's a way that you could start doing commercial. And it's this idea of it's the same thing but a different environment. If you always work solo, try seeing what it's like with a team or with the helper. It's this idea of switching up these little things in the background. Number 2, serve a different audience. Try sharing your gift with people who don't usually get it right away. When you have to adapt when you have to adapt, you grow in precision and clarity. So even if it means like talking about your craft with other people, we talk about conversations and stuff with friends and family, etc. But even this idea of trying to experiment talking, making your language make sense to somebody that isn't in your industry. Can you imagine an electrician explaining to you what they do and it making sense to you? And I'm telling you, as you talk about these things, it does bleed over into your actual work. It is making you sharper, as it's not just something that you do from 9 to 5, but it's something that's following you and is on your mind continuously, especially when it comes to like, if maybe this is about faith for you and growing your faith. Being able to talk about your faith with people who are not of the faith is a great way for you to adapt and grow and how to make this to better articulate what it is that you do. Number 3, remove the script. Try practicing your craft without a full plan. This builds a sense of spontaneous flow and creative endurance as you are trying to just jump into something and see what happens. I always like, it's like the idea of having a Leatherman or a multi-tool. Whenever I have a multi-tool, I'm like trying to spontaneously see when I can use it. And the more that I find ways to use it or like fit it into a problem or an equation, the better I get at using this tool. And I want you to look at it in the same way as your craft, like as a multi-tool. Well, like how can I fit this in even though no one's specifically asking for it? Number 4, document the process, not just the outcome. Try to talk about what you're learning. Even post about it on social media, not just what you've finished, but let's talk about the process of which you're going. And being able to try to build a self-awareness, it can help track growth. And what's really great is even be able to start journaling about your craft, journaling about what you're learning, what you feel confused about, what setbacks you feel. And the more that you're just engaging with this thought-provoking process, the more you're going to be about building along and honing this craft more. And finally, number 5, say yes to the small reps. Not every practice session has to be perfect or public. Even if it is like these low stake opportunities, if you're trying to grow, just keep moving. Be willing to do something quick, spontaneous, even if it's not necessarily this big gratifying payoff. If you're trying to get better, any little bit helps. So all that being said, don't wait for permission to grow. Some people never grow because they're waiting for somebody to hand them a platform or an opportunity. But the reality is that the greatest growth happens before any type of opportunity. Excellence is formed in private before it's recognized in public. And so the mindset shift is stop thinking I'll work on my gift when the opportunity shows up and start thinking I'll be ready for the opportunity because I'm working on my gift right now. And some closing thoughts for us is that I want to leave with you is you are given something worth developing. Your craft, your skill is not for nothing. It is something meaningful and it is worth for you to practice. Number 2, growth doesn't always feel glamorous. As I look back on my professional speaking, there's years that do not see any spotlight. There's years of my life where I'm just like almost like secretly practicing, practicing and no one else knowing, but I'm practicing believing that this will be meaningful. This will be useful one day. And to understand that it's okay for it to not feel glamorous right now. And finally, reps, consistency, and creative challenges are the path to mastery. Allow yourself to be able to take even the small steps and things that are outside of the norm for you to be able to grow. So whatever your craft is, get better at it on purpose. Practice it in places that feel unfamiliar, sharpen the skill in settings that don't feel ideal, and keep showing up with humility and with intention. With all that being said, I hope that this was meaningful for you. I hope that it made a difference. in your life, whether it's your leadership, your faith, etc. But until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.